my experience with, the past 20 years of dealing with this problem, which I think is a very significant problem in the area of substance abuse in adolescents, And then once I do that, then I'm just going to open it up for questioning, because I think that's probably the best way to learn, is to interact with other people and hear their experiences. It's a very interesting thing, because the most difficult part about enabling is defining it. Most people don't really understand, what is meant by enabling. And like I said, I've been in the field for a long time, and I've been dealing with these kids for a long time. And the parents really don't understand they're doing it, because it starts so early. I mean, I'm talking about 3-4 years of age. Enabling process begins, with kids, and basically the way I see it is, the way I look at enabling in my field, and like I said, every field has a different way of looking at it. If you look at food addiction, sex addiction, gambling addiction, enabling takes on different forms. So basically it's the same thing. It's doing something for somebody else so they can avoid consequences. So they can avoid, the consequences of their own behavior. In other words, stopping the person from taking personal responsibility for their actions. And of course, with kids, we have to do that, because as parents with little kids, they can't take responsibility for their actions. So this is a very natural process. It starts very young. And, some of the examples that I've seen, as time goes by, I have a whole library of examples of, enabling that I've seen. And, typically the typical examples are the kid comes home, he plays with his friends, he's hanging out, he's watching TV, and he's getting ready to go to bed. And it's, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and the kid is 11, 12 years old, and he says, "Mom, I have this project I have to do tomorrow for school." And Mom is like, "What do you mean you have a project?" And I mean a project, I mean an entire project that he has to do, and he hasn't done anything at all. And here's the mom struggling with what do I do? Do I let him stay up all night, which would be the consequence of this type of behavior? You get no sleep, you get to stay up all night, and you get to do this. And then she starts thinking, well, if he does that, then tomorrow he's not going to be able to stay up in class, he's going to be sleeping in class, he's going to get in trouble. They go back and forth. She yells a lot, because this is part of the process, a lot of yelling, but not a lot gets accomplished. It's a way of her venting and, getting the information out there. And then eventually she sits down, starts doing the job, and the kid goes to sleep. And she thinks, I helped my son or I helped my daughter, and really what she did was she again, enabled the person to get away with the problem and not to face the consequences of their own actions. Instead of saying, "You know what, you're not going to sleep tonight. I got news for you. Sleeping tonight is not an option. And you are going to school tomorrow. I'm not going to call and make an excuse for you because you were up all night." And this is another form of enabling. The kid doesn't want to go to school. He's tired. He has a stomach ache. He doesn't feel good. He doesn't want to get out of bed. And then all of a sudden they're late. And then all of a sudden, the kid stays home and the mother calls in sick. And she knows, or the dad knows perfectly well that there's nothing wrong with him. He's just avoiding going to school. And they get on the phone and they lie, because they feel that if they tell the truth, the kid is going to get thrown out of school, and there's going to be consequences that they can't deal with. And this is part of the problem. Other examples are, the kid, gets caught in school, and the kid gets caught in school with drugs, and we're talking about prescription drugs now, because this is a very typical process going on in the Dade County school system right now. Unlike many years ago, where illicit drugs were the main issue, with these kids now prescription drugs, drug cabinet drugs from the house. So the kid gets picked up and he's got his Xanax bar on him, and he tells the school, "Well, my mom gave me this last night because I couldn't sleep, and she gave it to me, but I didn't take it." So the school calls the parent, and then the parent is like, doesn't have a prescription for Xanax, never heard of the word Xanax, doesn't even know what it is, but tells the school, "Yes, it's my prescription, I gave it to him," and this another, way of enabling the process to continue, So again, the issue is the consequences never get applied, because the child never really understands the relationship between behavior and consequences. As he grows older, he starts to use the same technique, in other parts of his life, and he starts, doing it with teachers, you know, and teachers fall into this a lot. It's not just parents. Teachers enable tremendously. You know, they like the kid's a good kid, because, you know, these kids really build up a repertoire. They build up a cushion wherever they go, because they already have this, you know, process going on in their mind. So immediately when they go into any process, whether it's a new class, a new friend, they start building up a repertoire, a cushion to fall back on. In other words, they're the ones that are always there. They're the courteous ones. You know, they're the ones that are always saying hi to the teacher and giving her compliments on how beautiful you look today and this and that. So the teachers develop a rapport with the kid, because eventually in the back of their minds, they know at some level, and this is a subconscious level, that something is going to happen and they're going to need to get back some of this, you know, stuff that they're giving out now. And sure enough, you know, it comes. You know, they have to do, you know, some kind of a project, and they don't get it in on time because, you know, they procrastinated, which is another issue that comes up in this type of situation. And eventually, what happened was they didn't have the project. So now the teacher is forced to give this, you know, kid an F, you know, because he didn't bring the project in. But because of the rapport, because of the background, it's very difficult for her to do that. So she gives him a break and says, you know what, I'm going to give you an opportunity, and I want to let you bring it in. So again, the kid doesn't feel the you know, the consequence of his actions, and little by little this process continues until eventually, you know, the ultimate expression of this is when they start getting in trouble, you know, and they stop breaking rules and regulations and morals and values, and they start breaking laws. In other words, once they get to be 18, you know, the parents can no longer control the enabling process. They can no longer sit there and bail the kid out, because now they're in trouble with the legal system. And this is the problem that I tell a lot of parents: if you don't stop it now, eventually you're going to get to a point where this kid is going to be running into breaking laws, not rules, not values, not family values or mores or regulations, but he's going to start breaking laws, and then what are you going to do? You have no power to protect them, you know, and that's exactly what happens. And then eventually with these kids, you know, once they're 20, 21, and they've been in and out of the system, and they've been, you know, busted because, you know, they have this pattern of continuously trying to get away with something. It's almost like a cat and mouse game that develops between these kids, you know, and they have this pattern, you know, whether it's at work, they try to get away with, you know, coming in late, they try to get away with leaving early, they try to get away with, you know, pawning off their work on somebody else, because the same process continues. When they go to stores, you know, they have a tendency to try to cut corners there. You know, try to take a, you know, I've seen this with kids a lot, they take a garment and they change tags, labels on the tags. Well, that's illegal, that's stealing, that's shoplifting. They don't see it like that, because they think that they can get away with it. And I think this is the main thing that drives this kind of behavior. It's an understanding and, you know, an irrational belief system that develops that I can get away with this. You know, and adults have this problem also. This is why they are always constantly, you know, getting behind the 8 ball or getting behind on things and not being able to, because, you know, they learned this when they were kids. So enabling is something that continues on through the life cycle. It's not something that just stops at adolescence or a certain age, you know. And I think, like I said, adults who, you know, that I work with that understand this, you know, that understand that they're doing this, and they go back and they do the work to break these, you know, patterns and to deal with these irrational belief systems, they have a lot, you know, they have great results. With kids, you know, it's a lot easier because it hasn't really become something pathological. You know, with adults, as this process goes on, it does become pathological. You know, with kids, you know, they just started the process, so now as adolescents, you know, you guys or parents have the ability to go in there and deal with these irrational belief systems, because that's really what you're dealing with. You're dealing with thoughts and ideas that at one point worked for them. At one point, you know, these things worked effectively. You know, they did the behavior, they got away with it, somebody bailed them out, and everything was great. So this is something of, you know, vestiges of the past that used to work that no longer work, but they still hold on to them, because like any irrational belief system, it's not based on reality. It's not based on what's real and what's not. It's based on this idea, you know, that is very difficult to get rid of. You know, an idea and a belief systems, you know, these are things that are deeply ingrained in people's personalities.